How did we handle moving halfway across the country, having our second child, and dealing with car issues without blowing up our finances? That's what this video is about. I'm walking through what happened in 2025, what worked, what didn't, and how we're heading into 2026. I'm going to also be sharing our final 2025 weekly net worth check-in. And if this kind of real money life breakdown is helpful for you, feel free to subscribe and follow along. Let's get into it. Relocating from Washington to Texas. One thing I really underestimated was how expensive it is when you finally get settled. We had to buy a second car after a couple of months of being here. But what we didn't really think about is how expensive buying furniture and new household items was going to be, because we got rid of all of our old stuff before we moved. One thing that did help a lot though was my work. They were able to cover almost all of the costs associated with moving our car and our belongings. That took a huge amount of pressure off the move itself. Even with that though, it honestly felt like we were just continuing to spend money. But when I zoom out, I understand that this move still made sense. I believe there are more career opportunities here, and Aaliyah and I believe this is a place we can truly set roots in. We can buy a home, get stability, and stop feeling like we're in between chapters. If you were to ask me if I'd make the same decision again, I would absolutely say yes. Even though moving away from everything we've ever known has been hard, Aaliyah and I have been able to face and tackle challenges together. This move wasn't about winning short term. It was about lowering our long-term financial stress so we can finally set roots as a new family. And for us, that trade-off was worth it. Now let's talk about one of the reasons we moved down here: pay increase. When I first started my current job back in 2024, I had an increase in pay of about $15,000. I went from around $85,000 a year to about $100,000 a year, and now I'm at $102,000. On paper, that sounds great. After moving down here, we realized some of our costs actually went up. Water and electricity are the two main ones, mostly because we went from a 2-bedroom apartment to a 4-bedroom house. We have more space, more people, and now we have AC. Our previous apartment didn't have any AC. But I would say a majority of the things actually got cheaper. The rent for our 2-bedroom apartment back in Washington was about $1,800 a month. Here, we pay about $1,950 for a 4-bedroom house. We also noticed gas is a lot cheaper here as well, but there's a trade-off with that. Everything here is a lot more spread out, so it kind of equals out. So, do we feel richer today? Honestly, it doesn't feel like it, and that's on purpose. We practice something I think of as forced scarcity. Even though we're bringing in more income as a household, we don't want our lifestyle to expand too much. On paper, we're richer, but it doesn't feel like it. And that's kind of the point. Now, earlier I mentioned we had to purchase a new car once we got down here. Well, that was the first time we've gone through the whole process by ourselves with no help. The searching, negotiating, test driving, all of it. Our budget was set at $15,000 and we paid just over that in cash. The biggest lesson here wasn't about money. It was about control. Doing research and looking at different cars online and then going in person to test drive those cars mattered way more than I would have thought. When you're not in a rush, you have leverage. And it makes it easier to walk away from any deal. And that made the process way less stressful. Medical costs were a big part of our 2025. Our second child was born, and thankfully, everything went smoothly. All in, the birth cost about $4,000 out of pocket. Earlier in the year, I also had a medical procedure, which cost about $600 out of pocket. For both of those expenses, we had already set cash aside. We didn't put anything on a credit card, and we didn't pull from our emergency fund. Planning for large expenses and having cash on hand is one of the best ways to reduce risk. I knew that before 2025, but going through it this year really enforced it. Now, we did have some expenses in 2025 that were unexpected. Our car that we've had for about 5 years started needing repairs this year. First, we ended up buying new tires for our car because of our first flat tire. And then a couple days later, we had our second flat tire. And in total, that cost about $500. That didn't require touching our emergency fund, but we did have to pause some investing. Then just recently, I had to get my oil changed, and I got some bad news. There was an oil leak. It ended up being about $1,200 total by the end of it. That one did come out of the emergency fund. And when the mechanic told me the cost to finally get that oil leak fixed, I didn't get stressed out. It was annoying, yes, but I didn't panic and I didn't stress. That's the real value of an emergency fund. The expense still happens, but the stress doesn't come with it. I'm happy to share one of the biggest wins for us this year was crossing into $100,000 in investments. I started investing back in 2019 after graduating college. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew I needed to contribute to my 401k. Since then, jobs have changed, income has grown, and accounts have been moved, but the system stayed the same. Every time I changed jobs, I would roll my previous 401k into my new employer's 401k. I like the simplicity of having everything consolidated. In addition to a 401k, I also have an employee stock purchase plan through my current employer. Basically, that's where I can buy my company's stock at a discount. That's a small part of our portfolio currently, and we've earmarked that money to put as a down payment on a new house in a few years. That account isn't for long-term investing yet. Now on the Roth side, I started contributing to that back in 2020. My contributions were very sporadic at the beginning, but I did invest throughout COVID, which in the end helped the returns out a lot. The biggest thing for us wasn't hitting the $100,000 number. It was proof that starting early, staying consistent, and keeping things simple actually worked. Even after hitting $100,000 in investments, it still feels like we're a little behind. But when I look at actual benchmarks, the story changes. According to Fidelity, by age 30, you should have about 1 times your annual income saved. We're 28, and we've already hit that. That does give me confidence that the plan is working. And starting this channel has also helped more than I expected. It's kept me accountable and intentional. We still have a long way to go though. Even though that behind feeling will probably never go away, I still think it's important to pause and look back at what we've accomplished so far. We've made good progress, and now we just have to keep executing. Now let's get into our 2026 goals. Our main goal is to save about 31% of our annual income. For context, 25% is a common target for retirement savings each year. 31% is aggressive. We may need to adjust throughout the year, but that's okay. Goal number 2 is rebuilding our emergency fund. After the latest round of car repairs, our emergency fund is about $19,000 currently. We want to bump this up to $25,000 by the end of the year. That gives us about 6 months of coverage if worst case scenario happens and I lose my job. And our third goal is not money related. In 2026, we want to take at least 3 meaningful trips. Saving aggressively matters, but so does living and enjoying the current moment when the kids are young and we're a young family. It's now time for our last weekly net worth check-in for 2025. Heading into 2026, our total net worth is $123,996. Our liquid net worth, which makes up our cash and our easily accessible money, is $21,777. We're excited to head into 2026 with some momentum. 2025 wasn't flashy, but it did give us confidence. We're heading into 2026 with clearer goals, better systems, and less guesswork. And if following a family's real money journey helps you think more clearly about your own journey, consider subscribing and sticking around. We're documenting this in real time, not because we have everything figured out, but because we're building it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.